Okay, sounds good. So today we have two parts. First part is DevOps. Will be dedicated to DevOps certification. Will be presented by Frank Frambach. And the second part, I hope today we will manage with technical issues with connection. And Graham Bass will present you ISTQB Advanced level, technical test analyst, and test analyst. So if you are interested in just ISTQB, you should wait. If you're interested both in DevOps and ISTQB, you should listen right now. Let me introduce Frank. Frank, please turn on your camera and microphone. Do you hear me?
Yes, Victor, I hear you perfectly fine. Do you hear me too?
Guys, if you're here and see Frank, please write down something in chat. It's okay. So, guys, I'm leaving. Uh, enjoy, Frank.
Thank you very much, Victor. Okay, thank you very much, Victor, for the kind introduction. Yes, it's my pleasure to take you through an introduction of DevOps today. And before we get started, I'll just tell you a little bit more about myself and about start by doing that. So as you heard, my name is Frank Frambach. I am the Managing Director for iSQI BV, that is the iSQI office in the Netherlands. And telling you a little bit more about our organization, iSQI, International Software Quality Institute. For those who do not know us yet, we're an international software body, examination body, a global certification organization with offices in Germany, Netherlands, UK, and USA. And as I said, I'm the managing director for the Netherlands office. The focus of ISTQB has always been software testing to start with, quality and business value. And over the years, the portfolio have extended quite a lot, where you see that things like DevOps, DASA, which we'll be discussing today, is one of the programs that have been added over the last couple of years. So very recent addition to the portfolio. A little bit about iSQI in numbers, so you have an understanding about who we really are. Annually, we certify at least 30,000 professionals in all kind of programs, and obviously things like iSTQB, IREB requirements engineering are a couple of big programs, but also DASA, DevOps, which we'll be discussing today, is one of these fast-growing portfolio programs. We have a network of about 250 accredited training providers around the world, and across the world there are more than 500 examiners who conduct examinations for iSQI, which exams are available on 4 levels: as a paper exam, the traditional one; SMEX, which is a web exam but with a proctor; Flex, which is remote proctored, or one can go to a Pearson VUE center to take the test there. Up till now, we have certified IT professionals in over 100 countries, and we have a portfolio of at least 50 internationally recognized certifications. So as I said earlier, it's quite an extensive portfolio. Just a couple of operational things. All the attendees are on mute. That's to make it easier for me to speak and not everybody go through each other. But as you have seen already, you have a chat box. So should you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat box. And I will come back to those questions probably in the Q&A answer section at the end of the presentation. Should there be technical problems, please also use the chat box there, and there is support standing by who can try to help you. The duration sorry, this says 30 minutes, but actually we have an hour. So it will be approximately an hour today, including the question and answer section at the end. And this presentation is being recorded so that you can view it later on at your leisure, should you want to revisit it. Maybe people who missed the opportunity to attend tonight can view it at the leisure at a later time. So let's talk about DASA, DevOps, iSQI, what we're actually here for. That was the short introduction of iSQI. We will now go into the content for tonight. And again, there's quite a lot of ground that I want to cover. I'll try to do it slowly and clearly. Should I go too fast, or should you have any questions, then please go right ahead and let me know. DASA. DASA, what is DASA? DASA, DevOps Agile Skills Association, is an independent, open association supporting the development of high-performance IT organizations throughout the world with Agile and DevOps initiatives. So that's a whole lot to talk about, and we will go into that a little bit deeper. And DASA offers thought leadership as well as practical guidance for competence development for professionals and organizations. I think one of the key things here is about skills. It's an association and it has a lot of focus on skills. So we will look at these different talking points as we go along. So what is the definition of DevOps? We'll be looking at digital business models and how they are driving change in enterprise IT. We will talk a bit more about DevOps, the association, and the competence model, and obviously also the certification scheme. Then we will look at how DevOps and testing work together. So a lot of people who are connected to iSQI and who are connected to our training providers have something to do with testing. And from that point of view, we will look at what is the link between DevOps and software testing. So first of all, the question, what is DevOps actually? Is it a movement, a process, a job title, a way of thinking? There's a lot of ways to think about it and to approach it. And you see that if you ask people that you can get a lot of different answers. You see, it's not a thing. It's not a product or a standard or a specification. It's more about experience, ideas, cultures, way of working together, being a team. Um, as I said, it's a culture, it's a movement. You could say it's a practice. Looking at, for instance, DevOps Days in June in Amsterdam this year, they very much propagated the fact that DevOps was more like a movement or a culture where people are more all-inclusive and teams work together to support each other. So fundamentally, DevOps is actually an activity um, looking at optimizing the development of the organization to create more customer value. And we'll go into this a little bit later again, but all of these things go way back to the time of Toyota and Lean Six Sigma. So the whole development has already started way back then, and is still going on as we speak today. As I said, we believe that DevOps is not a thing or a product, a standard specification, but the key is that it is supporting high-performing IT professionals and teams. That's fundamentally what it's about. So it's about how do we support them, how do we help them, how do we enable them to be more successful in their organizations, and to help their businesses become of higher value to the markets that they serve. So basically, DevOps is the ultimate search for flow across IT and business. So you could say it's an optimal business IT alignment. So as I said a little bit earlier briefly, digital business models are driving disruption. What does this actually mean? Look at these top pictures, if you may. A DVD rental service, a student bulletin board, bookstore, search engine, online marketplace, transportation network. Just go back in time and think about not so many years ago, if people wanted to look at a movie at home, they would go to a DVD rental site. They would go and pick up a DVD, take it home, watch the film, and then return the DVD 1 or 2 days later. In student areas, they had a bulletin board where people would post stuff. Today, that's become Facebook. The DVD rental office has become Netflix. You look at a bookstore, if you go to a bookstore now, people order online. They buy their books online at Amazon. Search engine. We don't even think about search engine anymore. We just say Google has become a verb. We Google it, we search it, and Google has become synonymous with ways of searching and finding information across the internet. It's become a normal part of our life. Online marketplaces, just think about the enormous quick growth of Airbnb. Airbnb is growing so quickly that hotels are very concerned about it. Cities are actually worrying now about how they can limit tourism because the volume of tourism in some cities has exploded through the use of Airbnb. And Airbnb is the biggest hotel chain, if you may, without a single room to their name, because it's a model that connects demand and supply. Uber is the same thing. It has disrupted the whole taxi business to the point that there have been, you could call it taxi wars in some cities, and that in some countries Uber is actually forbidden because the governments are afraid that it's disrupting the business so much. The question obviously is, can you really stop it? Can you really stop the digital transformation and the disruption that is actually happening in the world and in the market today? The disruptive revolution is called DevOps. Why is it called DevOps? Because uh, development and operations, which is dev and ops, are together. IT infrastructures as we know them have changed again. They have disrupted. We went from mainframes to smart terminals, smart computers, PC networks, and now again it's changing completely because public cloud solutions have taken over all these local storages. So the whole way that we are storing data, we're finding data, and we're working with information is changing. Think about agile. If you think how quick agile has become a part of our normal life and how agile organizations have to be to keep up with the needs of their businesses, agile is here to stay and it's not moving away. And again, this comes back to the whole lean principle. Architectures, the whole enterprise architecture has changed because the need to serve the customer has changed and the way that the customer is being served is changing. And then continuous. Here we mention continuous delivery, but it's basically continuous everything because the economy has become 24/7. Uh, People are online all the time and they do their business all the time. And it's not limited to location, time zone, or time of day, or anything like that. So organizations have to be continuous in everything they do. So why are these disruptors so popular? This, what we see here is a report, a 2017 report about the state of DevOps. And I'm not going to go through all the details with you, but the key here is that the mean time to recover, the third line that you see, is 96 times faster. What does this mean? Change failure rate is 5 times lower. These two are key factors. Mean time to recover and change failure rate mean that how long does it take you to recover from a critical incident, and how low is the chance that if you have an incident, the change that you made will lead to failure. So just imagine if you have a mean time to recover, think about your home and you have a leaking pipe. If you have a long mean time to recover, it means that the pipe in your home, let's say in your bathroom, will leak for a long time and it will cause structural damage to your home. For instance, the water will leak through the ceiling and you will have a lot more problems because it takes long for the plumber to get there. Now, if your mean time to recover is short, it means that as soon as you see that your water is leaking, the plumber will be there, let's say within the hour, to fix it for you. So it prevents structural damage from happening. The change failure rate then means that once the plumber was there and he goes away, that the chance that the leak will come back is very, very low. Had this been a higher number or a lower number but a higher probability, the chances were that as soon as they fixed it, he goes away and then 1 or 2 days later, it's leaking again. So you can imagine why the importance of mean time to recover and change failure rate are so high, because the importance is that number one, if the problem arises, you solve it quicker, and number two, once it's solved, it stays solved. So it means that the quality of uh, the value you deliver to your market is way, way higher. So looking at that, obviously the question is, but yeah, why? Why is this happening? What is driving all of this? And basically, the drivers behind DevOps are you and me, the consumers, the customers. We are driving it because we are asking for these services. The enormous success of, as I mentioned already, Google, Airbnb, Uber, Netflix, you name them. These are all things that have been adopted and accepted by the customers, the consumers in the market, and who love this. You know, if we're traveling, how often do we not take an Uber to quickly go from point A to B? Why? Because it's easy. It's on your smartphone. You can see where the car is. You see when they arrive. You see which one is good. You can see the driver. You can even rate the driver after he's delivered you. So you make sure that next time you get a good driver. Looking at the difference to a taxi service, for instance, is you don't know which taxi will pull up. You don't know when it will pull up. Who's the driver going to be? What's the quality of the car? So all of these things have become very uncertain in the normal traditional businesses, and the driving value in the new businesses is so high that customers and consumers love this. So they're going for this big time. And what are now the main drivers for adopting this? Well, the desire is to move faster. Businesses want to move faster. Just think about how quickly Airbnb started and became a force to reckon with. How quickly did Uber come up and was a strong force to be reckoned with? And another one is the desire to scale up fast. Not only did Uber or Airbnb arrive in the market, but they were able to expand very quickly into different markets. So not only is it that you're there, but you can also scale into different areas and different markets. And a strong desire is there to go away from the dysfunctional mode, but work towards a sustainable way of working. So all errors, problems, and everything constantly coming back is not sustainable. So that's what they want to go to. Enterprise organizations are taking notice. Yes, they are. As I said already with Uber, we see that governments are protesting against it and in some countries banning it. Big taxi organizations are against it. Hotel chains are worried about Airbnb. And if you look at the energy market today, we see that the big energy companies are already very worried about what's happening in the free world with people connecting their green energy, like solar panels, to each other and creating a grid of energy to support each other and basically making the traditional businesses obsolete if they don't watch out. So now these big traditional businesses are looking for new ways to enter into this disruptive kind of business. Okay, that's looking at the business side of the market and what's driving it and what's happening. So now let's look at DASA, the DevOps Agile Skills Association. So we've looked at the conditions and what's happening in the world, and now we look at what DASA says about this. First of all, what is DASA? DevOps Agile Skills Association, as I said. First of all, it's independent, it's open, member-driven, and it's an association. So it is not a privately owned business um, trying to make a lot of money out of this, but it's looking at how can we support high-performance IT professionals, teams, and organizations to become more agile and use the DevOps initiatives. For that, there are 6 principles that underlie the whole DASA model, and these principles are all very business oriented. So principle 1, a customer-centric action, courage to act and innovate. So the courage to actually do something, but always have the customer in mind is the basic principle behind DASA. That's why it's principle 1. So your actions are customer-centric, you're looking at the business, and how can we take action to be uh, innovative. Principle number 2, create with the end in mind. This may sound obvious, but very often people start developing but don't have any idea where they're going to go. Obviously, you could say it's not agile to do that, but it is because you're thinking about what kind of service do I want to deliver, and then what could be the minimal viable product that I deliver to do that. And as I go, I will develop it along. Not all of us remember, but when Google started, it was very simple, basic, and very elementary. And over the years, Google kept on developing, and created more and more software. And today, we see that there is a full, very professional organization with all kinds of software around it. And you can hardly recognize the very, let's say, basic organization that it was when it started. So they had a vision, they had a direction, and they started with the end in mind, but still they built it as they went along in a very agile way so that you can still constantly tailor to your customer's needs. Then principle number three is an end-to-end responsibility. And I think that that's also an important part of DevOps, because in the past, when dev and ops were separate, dev would develop something and just throw it over the wall to ops, and ops would have to see how they could maintain it. Now, in a DevOps team, the joint responsibility is there to create something that is actually maintainable, and the accountability works for the whole team. So everybody is much more dedicated to make it work. Which brings you to principle four, and that is cross-functional autonomous teams. Cross-functional because all these functions are now combined in a team, so they're working together. It's not just developers or operations people or testers or what have you. They're a team and they're working together so to make it happen. Then, if we go to principle five, continuous improvement, we see that, as I said earlier, it's the striving to continuously get better and better and better. So, see an error, take it out, make it better. And that's why, also, as I said a little bit earlier, the time to recovery is important, the quality of the recovery is important, so that you can constantly indeed up the quality and not just redo the same mistake time and again. And then principle six, automate everything you can. So if you automate more, everything becomes easier and everything becomes of a better quality. And we see this also with businesses like Uber and Airbnb and everything. So much has been automated. And people say, yeah, but you're taking jobs away. No, you're creating new jobs, you're creating different jobs. And again, that's why this is about the skills that people need to be active and high performing in this kind of area. So let's look at the training qualification program, if you may. So DevOps starts with a fundamental course at level 2, which is competent, and it's a 3-day fundamentals. In the fundamental course, you're introduced to the DevOps principles, you learn about them, and you start to understand exactly how these high-performing teams work, how high-performing professionals are seen, and you can start developing your skills from there. Then through practitioner, you go into the more, let's say, deeper practice. The fundamentals is basically for everybody who's interested in understanding a little bit more about DevOps, whereas the practitioner is actually for people in the teams practicing it. Then if you go on further, you see the expert level, and these are expertises looking at, okay, which kind of area is really interesting for you. And we'll come back to this also a little bit later on. So DASA resonates in the market. As I already said, it's open source, it's membership, it's a driven organization. So why? What does it mean? Well, when DASA started, the idea was to create an association which is supported by organizations in the market and who will also start as forerunners. The definition here, a forerunner is something or someone that comes before another, a sign that something's going to happen. These organizations, 80 forerunners, and you see iSQI in there because we were the first exam service provider to support DASA. These forerunners support the DASA principles, the DASA ideas in the market, and are like, you could call it evangelists in the market about what is DASA, what is the good thing about it, and why should someone in the world be involved in this. Around the world now, and DASA, don't forget that DASA has only been around for about a year and a half, not even 2 years. Around the world now, there are already 250 plus training providers. And as you can see, they stretch from north to south and from east to west, all continents and all kind of countries have DASA training providers active in them right now. So wherever you are in the world, you will see that DevOps is catching on. That's also a very important thing, that it's not anymore limited to, let's say, any part of the world. You see that development takes place around the world, and the location is no longer a bottleneck. Whereas in the past, people would have to physically be in an office and work together. Virtual teams can now work anywhere, and we see software development happening uh, Far East, Middle East, North America, South America, Africa, you name it, any part of the world, Asia, it's everywhere. So that's why you see also here the training providers are there where the market is growing. As I mentioned earlier a bit, that ISTQB is a DASA forerunner and exam service provider. That means that we run the exams for DASA. And the exams currently are available in English, Dutch, German, and Japanese. And soon they will be coming in French, Spanish, and Polish. So these are the languages that you can take the exam in. Looking a little bit closer to the courses of DASA, the DevOps Fundamental course has already produced 100 plus certified training instructors to date. So it means that there are over 100 trainers accredited to deliver the fundamentals course. The practitioner course was launched earlier this year. So also there, in the meantime, there are now trainers available to deliver practitioner, and the advanced or the expert level courses are being developed and will be available shortly. So if we look at the competence model and the qualification program, and again, I said it's all about skills and developing skills and developing competencies within the knowledge DevOps. So the competency frameworks looks and identifies several knowledge areas and skills areas. And knowledge is obviously what you know, and skills is how you act and what you do. Then if we look at the area, DevOps looks at, DASA looks at the business value optimization, business analysis, architecture and design, programming, continuous delivery, test specification, infrastructure engineering, security, risk, and compliance. So you see that this is quite an extensive knowledge area. And as we said, skills about how you do and what you do, courage, team building, leadership, and continuous improvement. So these are the skills areas that DASA has recognized as being very important to people active within this level. So there is now also a competence framework, and you can see on the right-hand side in the spiderweb graph that one can plot the skills that you have against the spiderweb and see where you are and which kind of skills need further development. So the levels have been put down there from novice at 1 to master at 5. And then you can see where you still lack some skills and which area you should or would like to develop. Now the question also arose, well, how does DevOps actually fit with testing? Does it have anything to do with testing, or is it about service delivery, and where is the link between the two? So basically, for the testing community, why should you actually care about DevOps? And I understand that today maybe not everybody is a tester, but we know that within our network, within our base, most of the people that we have in our audience are testers. So as we already talked about the industry and the DevOps market, it's developing and testing must be a part of it. There is no choice because the importance of testing is increasing. We talked about the speed, we talked about recovery. What is it worth if your plumber fixes the leak but doesn't check whether it's actually leaking? So he doesn't even open the tap before he goes. He just fixes it and goes. He doesn't even test it. Then when he's out, you open the tap, you test if it's running. Yes, sure, the water's running, but it's leaking out of your pipe again. So what if they didn't test it? What's the value of it? As I said, infrastructure is becoming more software defined. We talked about cloud and how that's working. So that's also a part that needs testing. And testing professionals will need skills to be able to deliver on and above. This also has to do with the teams that you work in. If we take one example, I very often use the example of an airline business. And as I'm based in the Netherlands, we know that the Dutch airline is KLM. Today, more and more airline businesses are becoming IT businesses with wings. Why am I saying this? Well, if the IT was taken away from an airline company, basically no seat would be sold because 99% of the seats are booked online through the website. People buy the seat, they check in online, they even select their seat online, they can connect to people on board on Facebook. And now it's even so that if you're in the seat and if you're a frequent flyer and you have miles, if you would like to upgrade your seat, you can do that while you're in the plane online, decide that you would like to have a nicer seat, and you can move to a nicer seat. So the whole way of interacting with the customer for even an airline business is 100% online. So if this is not tested and not proven, how can an airline company ever be successful? Because you need to be able to check and to prove it. So where in the DevOps model does testing actually fit? Well, if you look at the fundamentals, software testers have a place in the fundamentals because they need to understand where their role is in the teams that are doing this within organizations. Then going to the practitioner level, they need to understand, okay, how can we practice the DevOps as a tester? And how do we work in cross-functional teams? Because as I said earlier, DevOps is also about creating cross-functional teams. And one of the functions in there, and a very important one for that, is testing. Then if you look at specify and verify, a lot of specification and verification, and the word verification basically already says it, you have to verify the quality and the content is to do with testing. Create and deliver, obviously, if you create something, you have to be able to be sure that what you created is going to work before you deliver it to the market. So there too, testers are very valuable. We talk about the T-shaped model within DASA and DevOps. T-shaped model basically says that you have one strength, which is your forte, that's let's say the leg of the T, and you know a little bit about all the others. So in a cross-functional team, you're, let's say, a tester, your strength is testing, but you also understand what the Scrum product owner does, what an architect does, what the infrastructure is, what the business owner does, what the business analysis does. So you need to understand a little bit of what everybody's doing, but still have your own strength. And this goes for all the roles. Let's say the developer also needs to understand what the tester is doing. The tester, when he tests in the DevOps team and he sees a comma missing in the code, he won't send it back to the developer anymore. He'll just put the comma there, correct it, and send it off to test again. And when it comes through, approve it and let it go. So this happens much more in the cross-functional teams now. So as I said, testing is integrated in the competence area, and the DASA model requires that engineers working in the areas have practical knowledge of testing and test automation. So we talked about the competence area, test specification. You see that you have to be able to define tests. When you're programming, you have to be able to test what you've been doing. And continuous delivery, obviously, you're constantly delivering things, and you have to be able to automate. Test-driven delivery is one of the important things that we see happening here. The continuous improvement also, when you're continually improving, you're testing, you're looking for errors, you're improving again, and you keep on going in that friendly and steady pace so that you keep on improving the quality and in the end, the customer satisfaction, because that is ultimately your goal, to create business value. So let's have a quick look at the journey for a tester in the DASA competence model. And we've taken a tester to look at, okay, what kind of role would he have? How would he develop himself? And I've taken a male tester, and that is, it could have been a female. It's just for the picture, doesn't matter. So the DevOps team contains two broad roles: specify, verify, create, deliver, which we just saw. And a third one called leadership, enable and scale. We also said, earlier when Airbnb started out, they were very small, but they started out with a good idea, had the end in mind, and grew fast. Uber, same thing. Google, same thing. They start small, but they enable and they scale fast. So if you look at the journey for a tester in the competence model, we see that in the teams, the cross-functional teams, you see all kind of people. You see product owner, see ops administration, we see testers, we see engineers, all kind of people. So everybody has their different level of skill. And we see, if you look at the spider web here, it starts on the inside with novice, and as you go further outside, it becomes master. Everybody can plot their skills to the spider model, and then see where they are and how they can go through the journey to develop their skills into the level that they need. So let's meet Bob. As I said, it's a gentleman, but this could have been a lady. And looking at his journey in this case, Bob has 4 years experience as a tester. He's certified as a tester. He's also a test analyst. He's done business analysis, so he has an entry level of business analysis. If we plot that against the competence model for DASA, we will see that this is what his competence model will look like today. You see he's at a novice level at some, and is a little bit more experienced at other levels. So now Bob gets assigned to a DevOps team. He said, okay, I'm now part of a team, and my ambition is to become more involved with the customers on a day-to-day basis. And we've seen that specify and verify profile actually met with his ambition, but not with his current profile. And we see that the areas that he's scoring on, test specification, architecture design is a little bit low. Business analysis seems to be okay. Business value optimization is not too bad either. So he wants to grow to the level of, as you can see, DevOps fundamentals will be to bring all these competencies onto the next level, level 2. So Bob starts his journey out by doing DevOps fundamentals and to understand more about DevOps and working in a DevOps team. After the fundamentals course, as you can see, he would be at level 2. Then he learns more about custom processes by communicating to customers and following some courses. And now he's going to do a little bit more about business analysis and requirements engineering. To understand the need of the customers, he needs to understand is the requirements that they have, what are their needs. So the IRAP course, CPRE, Certified Professional for Requirements Engineering, there's a foundation level, and he's actually going to do the advanced level here now, to better understand the requirements needed for the customers. And you see on the let's say on the top arch of the spiderweb scale, you see the DevOps practitioner. So this is the level DevOps practitioner will bring into level 3. And you also see that the IRAP advanced level is also at level 3, as is the business analysis. So that means that overall he's now developing his skills to be more valuable for the team that he is a part of, the cross-functional team. So as he continues to develop and grow, he's gained some practical experience. This is supported with the formal certification that we just talked about. And now he's going to go into the DevOps specialization, specify, verify. And there you see that he's growing his competencies even more, developing a little bit more to come to the level where he can actually support the needs of his customer, and again, in the cross-functional team that he is a part of. Then we see that he's going to an even deeper level now, so he's going to level 4, which is quite high. And we see that he's looking at architecture. So the Open Group has a TOGAF, which you may be familiar with, accredited course. And also looking at certified agile test-driven development, which is an iSQI certification, one of ours. And test-driven development helps him to develop, but also to take the testing right along in the development. And this again ties back into the whole quality approach of solving problems, making sure they don't happen again, have customer value in mind, and constantly be looking out for the value that you can deliver to the market. The nice thing about the model here is that you can stack all kinds of competencies which you acquire through courses that you've done outside of DevOps or themselves. Because as DevOps and DASA is about cross-functional teams, the competencies are also cross-functional. This means that the competencies that Bob here is developing for himself are not only DASA competencies, so they're not all within the DASA portfolio itself, but they're, let's say, plugins from the area. We talked about business analysis, we looked at requirements engineering, test-driven development, architecture. So there are a lot of frameworks, practices, skills area, knowledge areas outside of DASA that actually fit into the DASA portfolio. So this way, the whole competency model, the whole knowledge area is supported within DASA. Once Bob has developed this and gone through all these steps, he has developed his skills to the level where he would like to be and can be a full and valuable member of the DASA cross-functional team. So looking at what I wanted to tell you today, I see that I've gone a little bit faster than I had anticipated, but we have time for some questions now. If we go back to the whole story in a nutshell, we see that digital transformation is going very, very fast. Business disruption is happening, and we see that the businesses need to change in order to be able to be successful. So companies are changing very, very quickly. Business is changing very, very quickly, and we need to be able to adapt and to support them there. IT is the business. Business is IT. We spoke about business IT alignment in the past, and basically business IT alignment has come to be. It has passed. It has happened. And that is where DevOps is about. It's about creating the value for the business, taking into respect all the knowledge area, the skills, and the cross-functional teams in that way that you can actually support them in the best way possible. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat box now to see if there are any questions that you would like to ask me. And as I said, I've about 10-15 minutes for questions if you have. So please feel free to enter the questions. If possible in English, because obviously, unfortunately, my language skills do not extend into Ukrainian or Russian. So if you could do it in English, that would be very much appreciated. By the way, the chat box is on the left bottom side of your screen, should you have not seen it. I know most have seen it because you entered the plus to signal that you heard us. But should you be missing it, it's at the left bottom of your screen. In the meantime, while people are typing, and I see that some people are typing, I'm going to show you the next slide and put that on the screen because it's contact information. So as people are typing, you can always reach us through several ways. www.isqi.org is ISQI's website. Or if you want to know more about DevOps Agile Skills Association, you go to www.devopsagileskills.org, as you can see here. And there you can get a lot of content. So you can see how you can become a training provider, what the syllabus is for the courses. There are presentations there. There are webinars that have been given about the content of DevOps. So should you want to know more about, let's say, the course material, what it looks like, you can go there. Should you want to know a little bit more about other aspects? Do you want to know the syllabus, for instance? You can find it there. Do you want to know who the training providers, who the forerunners are? You can see it there. Application forms for trainers can be found there. Well, basically anything you need to know is available over there, so you can find it there. But obviously, we will be very happy to talk to you, and obviously, CodeSpace is happy to talk to you. So anybody who can support you, then these are our contact details.
Do we have any more questions, guys? I see that Metro is typing a little bit.
Yeah.
Now it's not.
Okay, there's a question from Dimitro. Does DASA certification consist of tech skills for DevOps? DevOps, basically the DASA certification depends obviously on which level. If we look at fundamentals, um, it's not a technical course, but it's more, as I said, it's more about working in teams and understanding how you work in teams. So it's not, let's say, in that way, a technical course that will teach you how to do, for instance, testing or coding or those kind of things. So in that way, it's not a technical course. It's more a course about understanding the digital transformation, the movement, and the cooperation between business and IT, and how cross-functional teams work together. So that's what fundamentals we talk about. Practitioner then takes this into the practice level, so helps you to do it. There is also a very good business simulation game called the Phoenix Project. And by the way, the Phoenix Project is also a very interesting book to read by a gentleman called Gene Kim, um, on which you can understand a lot about the project that he did and how he used DevOps in that project. So that's also very interesting. And a business simulation game has been made based upon this to help people to understand how to actually apply the principles of DevOps within teams. So it's not really a technical skills course, but it's more an approach, behavioral approach, and that kind of way. So if you're looking at technical skills, it's more a different one. Okay, I'll put the name of the book in the chat window. It's called the Phoenix Project, and the person who wrote it is a guy called Gene Kim. And I hope you can all see that. I hope, Dimitri, that this answers your question. Excellent. Thank you for acknowledging. Okay, the question is, which technical skills do you recommend for DevOps engineers? Obviously, the question is then, in return, what is the role of this person? Looking at the person that we just took as an example, Bob, um, he would do, let's say, requirements engineering. He would do architecture because of the role that he is looking for. So I think that the important question is to look at what is the position within the cross-functional team that you would like to fulfill, and then based upon that, you kind of map as we did with Bob. And maybe I'll just go back a couple of slides to show you. Yeah, yeah. So Bob says, this is where I want to go. This is my position today. And what are the steps, as I took through just now, that I will do to get there? And as we can see here, we see that he has done test-driven development. Sorry, my skill on drawing is not that good. He's done requirements engineering. So the role that he's looking for is maybe a less technical role because he's very much into the business side. But you could say that test-driven development could be a technical part. So again, it is very much related to the skills, and DASA is, and it may already be available. If it's not, they're coming out with it really soon. A tool which you can make this graph that we have here on the spiderweb graph, that you can make it for yourself by answering a number of questions, and then you will get this graph and you will see where you are. Can CCBA be replaced with IRAP Foundation? Well, CCBA is more like business analysis, and IRAP is requirements engineering. So I wouldn't say that they replace each other. And ISTQB has a CABA, Certified Agile Business Analysis program, but they complement each other. because IREB and requirements engineering is very much about understanding the requirements of the customer and of the business, and business analysis is also looking at the bigger picture than just the requirements. So they're complementary, and that's also why you see here in the picture that Bob has done CCBA and IREB because they support each other. They are complementary to each other and they meet different needs, but they're very much. I hope that answers the question. Another interesting certification in this program is also Certified Agile Tester, and also within testing teams, and obviously within the Agile team. And maybe something to hint at, I already mentioned Toyota a little bit earlier. If we look at the disruption that has taken place, we see that in the 80s, Toyota came out with a model for producing cars with the Lean Six Sigma principles and being agile and just in time. Well, basically, if you look at the whole Lean principle behind that, that has been growing and evolving, and the whole thought of lean, agile, and now DevOps all comes out of that kind of principle to be low on waste, automate as much as you can, high on quality, and high on customer value. So the whole process, the whole growth, the whole journey, if you may, is still coming back from what Toyota started out in the 80s with Lean Six Sigma.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, so Frank, thank you very much for the interesting journey into the DevOps country.
Thank you very much. I hope it was clear and I hope it was interesting.
Okay, so guys, let's take a coffee, but not too much, and let's meet again at 8 p.m. 15 to listen to the great we will manage with the technical issues we had. So Frank, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And thank everybody for the time and thank you for joining me today. And
Okay.
Again, should there be any questions, then I'd be happy to support that.
Last chance for the questions. No? Wow. It's just thanks.
Okay, very welcome. Thank you very much for being here today.
Okay, see you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Guys, please stay connected. We still have Graham on the line. He will do a presentation from the phone without the video. He's a very busy guy and currently is on the customer place, which takes some limitations. So phone and the presentation. Okay, let's come back at let me put to the Skype into the chat again to listen to the Graham bus. If you don't mind, right now together with Graham we will try to establish connection again.
Hello, hello, hello.
Wow, Graham, we can hear you. Can I?
It's a miracle.
Yes, yes, it's a miracle. Can you manage the presentation? Just try to move the cursor.
I can move the cursor, but I can't move the actual slide position at the moment.
Yep. What about now?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's wait for 20 minutes and start the magic. Okay.
Okay. I'll just sit here. Don't touch anything.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So you can mute your phone. I would say in hardware. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I wait for you to introduce me.
Yes.
1, 2.
Yes. Yes. Graham, do you hear us?
Yep, I'm there.
Okay. So, guys, let me introduce Graham Bass. He has unbelievable experience in software testing. And today, now without the problems, without technical issues, he will tell us about Test Analyst and technical Test Analyst. Graham, you're welcome, but without video, fortunately. Okay, let's move.
Thank you, Victor, and greetings to you all, and hope you have a good evening. We're going to cover this evening Test Analyst and Technical Test Analyst from the ISTQB. Before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm the Working Group Vice Chair for Advanced Level at ISTQB, and I'm the Working Group Chair for the Expert Level at ISTQB, and I'm a member of the German Testing Board. So now you know what I do in my free time. My day job is at a company called T-Systems, that's part of Deutsche Telekom here in Munich, which explains this lovely magenta color you can see on your screens just now. And just in case you're wondering how I got such a good accent, a good English accent, it's because I am English. I just happen to work in Germany for the last 30 years or so. So yesterday we had several presentations available and given to you on the subject of what ISTQB offers. And unfortunately, I couldn't add to that yesterday. So for those of you that didn't hear the presentations yesterday, maybe just a quick piece of context for you. The advanced level is at ISTQB positioned at a core level. So test analyst, technical test analyst, and test manager are advanced level subjects in the core area of ISTQB. They sit on top of the foundation level and they develop the foundation level. Now we consider them to be core subjects because this is basically the tester and the skills of the tester that we expect people to have regardless of what kind of project they're going to be taking up. So there was a fascinating talk just recently about Agile and DevOps, very interesting. But you know, you can't do that without knowing how to test. And the test analyst and technical test analyst modules give you advanced skills in being able to test. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about this evening, to give you a flavor of what's in those particular syllabi so that you can decide which one maybe would be interesting for you on your pathway to a better tester or a better person in the IT area. So just before we start, let me just explain to you test analyst. It sounds like a role. Yes, it's a role, but in actual fact, what we are most interested in is the skills and in the knowledge that you obtain in those syllabi that we give these role names. Very often you will find in particular projects, agile projects perhaps, you won't find the actual role test analyst, but you will find many of the skills that we group together under this test analyst label. So let's look at the actual contents that we'll look at. I'm going to first of all look at test analyst, and then we'll look at the technical test analyst. And after that, we can take some questions on both subjects. So this is the test analyst. This is what we're going to look at. Well, what are the basic tasks involved, and what is the position of the test analyst in the area of risk management? What are the specification-based testing techniques that the test analyst would typically need to know about? These are the fundamental things that a tester needs to know. Defect-based and experience-based techniques we'll look at. I'll explain to you broadly what the syllabus covers. Then we'll look at some of the quality characteristics that a test analyst can deal with and can test. And finally, just to round off, something regarding how to use checklists for reviews. So let's get going then with the actual principal tasks. Now, I've shown here the perhaps familiar diagram of the fundamental test process according to ISTQB, and I've done that so that you can see where the principal activities of a test analyst are. So as you can see there, it's basically in the area of test analysis and test design. But just like with any other testing task, the test analyst needs to know what to do for all of these different activities in the test process. So the test analyst will be involved in test planning and control, and also later on, for example, in the evaluation of exit criteria. So there is an involvement in many of these activities, but the principal ones are in the test analysis and test design. These are the areas where you are basically using a lot of skill in order to get the best tests from your test basis, the inputs you're using. So there we are. Those are the main areas that we're interested in for the test analyst. Now, let's look at test analysis and design a little bit closer. What you see there is where are the principal activities there? Well, it's in the area of checking and analyzing the actual test basis. Now, what's the test basis? That's the information that you have, that you use in order to identify test conditions, in order to be able to create good test cases. And the analysis stage is particularly important for the test analyst because basically your test basis, it can be user stories, it can be requirements, whatever. This is what you're going to be basing your tests on, and the test analyst has got a number of activities there to make sure that that test basis is of good quality, and so that the actual test conditions can be easily identified. So in those test analysis stages, we're interested in finding out what to test. What is it that we need to test? We're identifying conditions, the testing conditions under which these items should be tested. And once we have those, we can start thinking about designing tests. Designing tests using principally test techniques so that we get the best set of test cases. Now, the best set means ones that are likely to be effective at finding any defects, and ones that are going to give you a level of efficiency so that you can actually cover a lot of areas with a minimum number of test cases. That's what all the subject of test analysis and design is actually about. So spend a lot of time thinking about these things, and we'll look at the actual techniques in one or two slides. so that you can see just how much there is that the test analyst needs to know about in terms of techniques. Okay, so now don't forget that one of the principal things that we're doing in testing is also providing confidence to our stakeholders about the level of quality that has been achieved. And testing gives those stakeholders that level of confidence by showing what kinds of things have been covered. How have we covered, for example, our user stories? And this is an important aspect of the test analyst work to ensure that the required coverage has been achieved, and to demonstrate after testing what actual level of coverage was achieved in the testing. So that's a really important task that the test analyst has in that respect. Now, if you remember back in the slide that we had before, I told you that the test analyst is involved in test planning and test control as well. And the area that is principally important for the test analyst is in risk management. I'm sure that we are all aware of what risk-based testing is. Now, the first step in risk-based testing is to actually gather your risks. Once you know about them and once you've evaluated them, you can mitigate those risks. You can fight those risks by performing tests. And of course, risk-based testing is a strategy that enables you to mitigate, to reduce the levels of risks that you have in your product. Now, many of you may think that this is just the test manager's job or the Scrum Master's job or somebody with a, if you like, a higher view over the actual project. Well, certainly the test manager would be principally responsible for the overall risk management, but that person relies on the test analyst to supply risks, to identify the risks that are particularly relevant from the perspective of the test analyst. So it's a teamwork thing. And the test analyst needs to have the skills to know, in particular in the areas of functionality and also usability, where the actual risks lie with a particular type of product, and supply those risks to the test manager. So it's knowing where to look for and identifying particular types of risk, important aspect of the test analyst. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that the test analyst is performing principally test analysis and design. And one of the things that that are used in doing that are test techniques. And this next slide shows you in overview form those test techniques. Well, look at all those. Lots of different ways to use techniques to get particular test cases to show particular levels of coverage. So I guess some of those we would know already. And don't forget the advanced level core does build on the foundations level. So you will see some old friends there, if you want to call them old friends. And the advanced level takes those on to another level. So for example, equivalence partitioning you've seen at foundation level, and with the advanced level you will extend that to ways of identifying equivalence partitions. It's not as easy as it sounds sometimes, Maybe you've got a simple example at foundation level, but at the advanced level, you'll get much more idea about how to identify particular types of partition. And the same applies to boundary value analysis. These are the areas where we, as we know, we're going to find defects. We do boundary value analysis to catch defects that typically occur on borders, going once too many around a loop, or once too less around a loop, or doing coding that says for 0 to 10, do the following, and actually what you meant was from 1 to 10. All this kind of easily made mistake that we try to catch with boundary value analysis. You saw that at foundations level. At the advanced level, we cover the same subject, but we look at how many boundary values do you need. Do you need 2? Do you need 3? Do you need 4 values on the boundary to give you a level of thoroughness in your testing? Now, state transition on the top, in the top right here, I guess you've seen that at foundations, and that's developed again in the advanced level to give you more complex examples of how to deal with transitions between states, how to get different levels of coverage from a state transition diagram. In particular, how to cover not just simple switches between one state and the next, but many switches in a chain. And that is a subject which, of course, gives you much stronger levels of depth and strength of testing, but it also makes life difficult and sometimes complex for the testing. So you need this kind of advanced level information to help you design those very rigorous types of test case for state transition. Now, the decision tables you've seen at foundations level in the core. Simple tables, simple things that enable you to decide which rules to define so that you can go from a set of different conditions to their outcomes. So these are the kinds of things that you find when you see a specification, a user story or something like this that's got lots of, if you do this, then do that, otherwise do something else, and when that happens, do this, except when all this kind of logical statement that starts off being quite easy to follow, but very quickly becomes very difficult to keep in your head. So decision tables help you to write down all those different rules, get them lined up, get the combinations of different things laid out in a simple way. And the advanced level helps you to create those tables and helps you to use special ways of dealing with the tables, like collapsing the columns and various things like this that will get the best out of decision tables. And believe me, decision tables are a really useful technique, very applicable. Now, those 4 techniques I just mentioned to you, you build on the foundations. There are 4 other techniques covered at advanced level, and they include use case testing. You could actually call it user story testing as well, which basically gives you a broad way of knowing how to move through a use case or a user story. In the area of combinations, we have at the bottom left here, classification tree technique, which enables you to ensure that if a particular parameter takes many different values, that your test cases cover where possible, as many of those individual values as possible. So classification tree helps you provide some structure to the complex area of variables and the values that they can take. Now, the combinational problem is sometimes quite significant, especially if we're dealing with modern day, let's say, web-based or mobile-based systems that need to run on lots of different platforms, lots of different operating systems, different backends, different databases, lots of different things which all come together in various combinations. And as the number of combinations goes up, and it goes up, believe me, very quickly, you will find that the number of combinations becomes untestable. So pairwise testing and another associated technique called use of orthogonal arrays will help you reduce the number of combinations that you need to look at in your testing. It will give you a way to become both effective and, above all, efficient by reducing the number of required test cases. Now that's powerful stuff, and these are all like the tools that the test analyst has got in his or her tool bag. The domain analysis is the final technique covered. This is quite a specialized area. Not many people use it, but we do mention it because maybe one day it becomes appropriate for you. And it's a way of considering equivalence partitioning in several dimensions. I won't go into the details any further. It's quite complex, but in the right situation, it can be the technique to use. So what you learn in the test analyst module is not just all of these techniques, but when to use which one or which combination of techniques. Under what circumstances do you apply them? And this is quite a skill. And this is going to be very, very useful for you in any project situation, because you will be required or asked by your team members, okay, how would you test this? And along you come with your tool bag of techniques and tell them what you can do. Now, those are so-called specification-based techniques. In other words, you can only do those techniques, you can only use those techniques if there is something written down that enables you to use as a test basis. That's why we're saying the specification is something that's written down, like a user story, like a use case, like a requirement. Now, it doesn't always work that way, because sometimes you don't have a specification, and maybe you don't have the time to do everything according to these very rigorous and systematic techniques. So the test analyst also learns how to perform so-called defect-based tests and experience-based tests. Now, as you can imagine, the secret lies in the right mix of the systematic specification-based tests and the right mix of defect and experience-based tests. You don't do 100% of one or 100% of the other. It's the right mix that you are looking for. And the test analyst syllabus gives you those clues and hints and tips on how to actually get the right mix. Now, defect-based uses so-called taxonomies. Those are lists basically of typical types of defect that can occur. This will help you focus your attention on particular areas. With the experience-based techniques, well, good old intuition, you can use that. If your intuition is based upon strong knowledge. That can be a powerful way of approaching testing. And you can always support that with checklist-based testing, which basically is a list of things that you repetitively test. For example, if you want to look at graphical user interface, check that certain things are always there. Check that things are all set to the correct defaults, let's say. Let's say that all the drop-down lists have got proper entries in them. All of these kind of fundamental things that you're repeating over and over and over again, now you can put those in a checklist. If you're doing manual testing, you would use that checklist. If you're doing automated testing, you would probably use the checklist to help devise your automated tests. Now, finally, the exploratory testing is something that is becoming more and more used, quite often misunderstood what it actually means. In the Test Analyst module, you will get a feel for the actual process of performing exploratory testing, what it means to design sessions, what session-based test management means, and what test charters mean. These are all the things that you need in order to perform, if you like, a controlled form of exploratory testing. And the Test Analyst needs that kind of overview. So let's move on quickly to the quality characteristics, because you can see a lot of them there. It's a complicated diagram. What you see on there, the gray blocks, are the various quality characteristics. Some of them will be familiar to you: functionality, usability, security, portability, and so on. Now, in blue, we have the quality characteristics that are covered by the Test Analyst. That's functional, suitability, and usability. Later, when we look at technical Test Analyst, you'll see that these other green areas, these other quality characteristics, are covered by the technical Test Analyst. Interesting to note is that some of these particular modules have now become specialist modules in the ISTQB specialist stream. And for the Test Analyst, that includes usability. So that's the area that is dealt with by the Test Analyst. And finally, just to wrap up what the Test Analyst does, there is quite a good section on how to check requirements using checklists. We probably know about reviews, but how do you perform reviews explicitly for the purpose of checking requirements? So that's just an extra there. So if I could ask you, Victor, to swap me over now to the technical Test Analyst presentation. We'll continue. Oh, that was quick. Thank you. We'll continue now with the technical Test Analyst. Now, it's the same as I mentioned before. The technical Test Analyst, you may not find it as a specific role in your projects, but you certainly will find the skills and the activities that are mentioned in this advanced level course syllabus. So let's take a look at the things that you find there. First of all, the principal tasks, and then a number of items that you see that give you quite quickly a flavor of what this kind of what this technical Test Analyst is about. It's much closer to the code. It's much more technical than the Test Analyst was. It covers a number of quality characteristics which we'll look at. So this is the area actually that's becoming more and more important in our projects. This technical tester kind of skill. So we'll look at what's in there, and afterwards we'll have some questions. If you have any questions, I'll take some questions on test analyst and technical test analyst. So principal tasks, very, very similar to the test analyst, except the differences are this technical attribute, this ability to consider technical, architectural things, code, stuff that's close to the code, evaluating risks which are technical, associated with technical quality attributes. So it's working together with architects, maybe working together with developers at code level. And as I mentioned before, this is becoming a lot more relevant. And the skills actually are expanding quite substantially. Now, with technical test analyst, the ISTQB has slowly but surely developed some of the concepts. Now, the current technical test analyst gives you a good overview of some of the principal subject areas, like security testing, like test tools and automation, and like performance testing. Now, that covers the subject area at a reasonable level, gives the technical test analyst a good overview of all of the different technical quality attributes, but it doesn't go into very much depth. And so the technical test analyst module is like a platform, it's like a springboard for the much more thorough specialist level syllabi. And you can see that we've got 3 already in place or under development, 1 for security testing, 1 for test tools and automation, and 1 for performance testing. So we are taking the subjects introduced in the TTA module and developing them further. So there's scoping to be done, and it gives you a nice springboard, a platform from which you can go, if you wish, into much more detail. Now, what the actual technical test analyst needs to know is something about testing techniques. Now, because the actual technical test analyst is working much closer with the code, many of the techniques involved relate to testing directly the code. These are so-called structure-based testing techniques. Now, it's going to be another 3 hours for me to get through all of these, so I'm just saying to you, there are all those different types of structure-based testing techniques. They all have different flavors, they all have different strengths of tests, and they're all described in the syllabus. So it's about writing test cases to give you a good level of coverage. Sometimes the level of coverage is defined in your project. Sometimes it's required from you for complying with particular standards. For example, the modified DC testing techniques is something that is specified in, I think, the railway standards for testing signaling systems. So you will find that these things may come up one day, and you'll know about them because you've looked at this TTA course and you know about how to use these Well, it's me again. Can you hear me all? Looks like the line dropped out there, so I'm just going to continue where I last was when the line broke down. Now we're looking at the technical test analyst, and we're looking at the kinds of techniques that the technical test analyst can use. One of them is static analysis, the other dynamic analysis. These are, again, close to the code. With the static analysis, control flow is what we're looking at. Ways to find dead code, endless loops, and things like this in the code. Data flow analysis will detect incorrect use of our data that is used in the code. It's like finding data that is being used but not yet initialized, and things that can lead to potentially nasty things happening like crashes. Now often you will be using tool support for that. So we mentioned the tool support that's available, but as ever, you need to know what the tool's doing before you can use it. And the TTA course will give you an overview of what kind of things the tool will find for you. We look at call graphs and various techniques to analyze the structure of the code to help you gain insights into the code. Now, dynamic analysis is where you're actually running the code and evaluating what's happening. In particular, the memory usage, and that can be particularly important if you're using programming languages such as C, C++, and to a certain extent the use of Java. So it looks at the principles of dynamic analysis and then tells you what the tools can do to help you do that. So that's the analysis techniques that we have. Now earlier when we were talking about test analysis, the test analyst, I mentioned to you the two areas here, functional suitability and usability, and I pointed out that actually the technical test analyst covers a whole bunch of other quality attributes, and these are all described in the TTA course. They're described so that you can know what kind of risks can be associated with these characteristics. You won't need them for every project, but if there is an issue there, you need to recognize it. And so it gives you the ability to know what kind of risks you have, reliability risks, portability risks, and so on. And of course, the bigger areas of security and performance. And just like with usability, these two areas, performance and security, are the subject of specialist modules now. So security testing, just to give you a flavor of what you cover at TTA, it looks at different types of vulnerability in security. It covers the principal types of vulnerability, like denial of service and input buffer overrun. Those are the classic cases. It covers about 6 or 7 typical types, cross-site scripting and so on. And then broadly gives you an idea of how to perform the planning and design of security tests. This is, for a security tester, basics, okay? So this is why we give you this at TTA level and point you in the direction of the specialist module and security testing if one day you want to go into that area in more detail. And the same applies for performance testing. It gives you a basic grounding in the area of performance testing, how to approach it, how to plan, what kinds of test design aspects need to be covered, how to design load profiles for particular conditions such as stress, and a maximum load, and so on. It will give you that information. It's useful for a technical test analyst to have a thorough overview of all of these things. But if you decide you want to go further and get more experience, you can do that in the specialist modules that performance testing is in development and close to being released, I believe. Now finally, technical test analyst covers some of the basic areas of test automation, how to select tools in particular, but points you very much in the direction of the test automation specialist module. And just like with the test analyst, the technical test analyst gives you some help in using checklists for technical reviews, and the focus there is in performing architectural design reviews and performing code reviews. Now that was the whole spectrum of what we cover at this advanced level, core level. And again, once again, I think that it's worth emphasizing these are core skills. These are things that you can apply to lots of different project situations, whether they are classic, whether they are agile, whether they're DevOps. You need to know these core skills as a tester. Now, if you need any help, I can recommend a book that will describe all of the aspects of both of those syllabi, hopefully in a readable form. And just to give you some hint there at the top of how the exam is structured, the exam is something that's provided by iSQI and includes those 3 ISTQB Advanced level core modules, 2 of which we just looked at. And as you can see, they're quite a good long duration. Test analyst, 180 minutes, 3 hours. Advanced technical test analyst, 2 hours. So the actual course length, the test analyst is 4 days length. Technical test analyst, 3 days. I think in the future, when updates to these modules come, those values will start to come down a bit. So I hope you've got an overview of what we're looking at. I hope above all you've taken away the message that these skills, these things are very much still relevant. We're hearing lots of new ideas, lots of disruptive ideas, but don't lose sight of the fact that testing is still there as a core skill. Now, what I would invite you to do is to ask me any questions, if you have any. Once again, sorry for the technical hiccup. I hope that didn't disturb too much. If you have any further questions, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them in the chat box, which is in the bottom left of your screen.
So guys, could you please write the questions into the chat?
So there's a question just being formulated. It looks like it could be quite a long one. I'll be right with you, everybody. Okay, here we have it from Dimitro. Thank you for the presentation, Graham. Well, my pleasure. Would you please evaluate if TTA certification is quite linked with developer skills, e.g. debugging and etc.? Well, Dimitro, yes, it's very closely linked, excuse me, is very closely linked with what the developer will do. Some areas very directly related to the developer area, for example, the static analysis. Very often the static analysis or even the dynamic analysis, you would expect the developer to have the tools for those analysis types in the tool set of the developer. Okay, so the developer will be releasing code which has already been through those checks. So there's an overlap there with what the actual developer and the technical test analyst do. In a similar way, many of the white box structural techniques that you saw, like code coverage and path coverage and so on, these are things where the developer may already be doing this, but my experience is often that developers do need or do welcome some support from technical test analysts to give them a hand to help them realize what kinds of techniques they can use, what kinds of coverage they can achieve. So you're quite right. There is a strong relationship also to the developer in the technical test analyst area. Hope that answered your question for you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Any more? Okay, so one or two questions still being formulated. Would I recommend, there's another question, would I recommend any tools to be used for TA and TTA? Well, what we tend to do with ISTQB is that we are tools neutral. We talk about types of tools because we don't actually get involved with specific tools. Of course, we will give examples, so you can find examples of particular types of tools, but we don't push any particular type of tool. So it wouldn't be right for me to actually mention or recommend any types of tool in particular. All I can suggest is that if you look in the literature and material relating to these subjects, you will find in Google, just by Googling tools for static analysis or tools for performance or tools for white box coding, white box testing, then you will quickly find a large number of tools. And the idea is that you get the skills to enable you to select the right tool rather than this is the one that ISTQB recommends. Any more? Got it. Thank you, Dimitro. Good questions. So another question coming in. Okay. No questions. Thank you, Olga, for the compliment. Thank you for listening. Dimitro, what would be the career path for a person who got TTA certificate? Well, that's a fantastic question. And the answer is your choice, guys. If you have the TTA certificate, your next step can be a number of different modules. So I would suggest if you have TTA and you are interested in the technical side of testing, then good modules for you would be in the specialist area. In the specialist area for test automation, for security, for performance. But also, don't forget ISTQB has a thread, a career path thread for agile testing. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, then the TTA quite possibly would start to look at modules for example, the advanced level agile tester technical, which is coming out quite soon. There are no dependencies between these things. You choose what to do. Okay. So there we are. Okay. What would be that? So the career path is something that when you go from foundations, you would go up to advanced. That would be your career path. If you are interested in test management, your career path would take you then up to one of the expert level subjects in test management, improving the test process and test management. But those are not follow-ons from the technical test analyst or the test analyst. So I guess you have a range. If you look at the portfolio diagram from ISTQB, you'll see a range of different options that you can follow as the technical on the technical side, or for the if you like traditional test analyst, there are other routes that you can go. Good question. Any more?
Do we have any more questions, guys? Nobody is typing. I also hope that nobody is sleeping.
It's getting it's getting late, I think, huh?
Yes, yes. Let's wait for Dmitro to finish.
Okay.
I don't see typing anymore. So
okay.
Okay. Okay. I would say thanks, Graham, for the nice presentation. It's nice that we haven't stopped due to technical problems. Actually, probably we need to take a little bit more about testing.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you very much. If you have something to say, just a few words, you can say it right now.
Sure. Well, just a few words just to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Eric, also. Oksana, thank you. I'm very grateful for your time listening in this evening, and hope this gives you some perspective for your testing careers. Thank you very much for listening, and just get in touch with me if you wish. I'm sure you can find me on LinkedIn and so on. Thanks very much for listening, and sorry again about the technical issues, but we got there in the end.
Yes, okay.
Goodbye.
See you. Okay, guys, and tomorrow we will have presentation from Stefan Sturm. It will be dedicated to IREP certification, which could be interesting to business analysts, for software test engineers, all of them, and for, I think, for project and product owners. So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and let's meet tomorrow to find out what is the IREP, how we can help you in your professional activities. All right, and have a good night. See you.